I know a couple things pretty well. Basketball is up there, but something I think I know better than that is coffee. I love coffee. It's part of my daily routine, and I've made it my mission to find the best coffee roaster, and I think I found them. And I'm so confident in that for the first time ever, I reached out to a company offering to advertise for them, and that company is Alchemy Roast. Alchemy Roast is a Metro Phoenix-based coffee roaster that focuses on the transformational process of coffee from seed to cup. Alchemy Roast is about more than just coffee. It's about passion, dedication, and community. They're a small batch roastery committed to sourcing the finest beans and mastering the art of the roast, and they do it ethically. That's right, ethically. I've made espresso with the Colombian beans, and I would describe it as the best coffee I've ever made at home. This coffee is good, and they can ship it to you. All you have to do is go to alchemyroaster.com and use the promo code TIMELINE at checkout, and you'll get 10% off your order. All the beans are single origin and are roasted perfectly. My favorite, like I said, is the Colombian honey, but try the Guatemalan single origin too for drip coffee, which has the tasting notes of chocolate, almond. It's sweet with a medium body and a smooth finish. Just order now and support them and support us at alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE. That's alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE at checkout. The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Back from vacation. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
It's almost over. Oh my God, it's almost over. The Phoenix Suns, 35-43.
Yeah.
As we record, we have one more. Is it just one more? Maybe two more? Hustle Player of the Weeks to hand out.
Yeah, two more.
We're not doing that today.
Yeah.
But after all of the fuss we made about a 4-game win streak at one point for the Suns,
it was fun.
It was fun. They are now on a 6-game losing streak. And last few games, lost to Milwaukee, lost to Boston, lost to the Knicks. I guess none of these are entirely surprising. It's just like it has never been more over than it is now, as there are a couple games behind the Kings and Mavs. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, the big story is no Kevin Durant. Obviously, he's not playing, and they're just trying to scrap any sort of victory out of all of this, and they just can't. And they haven't been able to all season. Like, when Kevin Durant doesn't play for this team, they get their asses kicked pretty regularly. And right now we're seeing that. And the schedule doesn't really let up for them very much. Like, it's going to be difficult game after difficult game for the rest of the season. And in some ways, like, I'm grateful they're not going to be able to flex 49 wins at us again like they did last season. In other ways, maybe they were right about how miraculous it was that they got 49 wins out of last season to begin with, because this season, it's not looking like they're going to get anywhere close to that. They'd be lucky to get over 40, and they're probably not. And at this point,
they can't.
Yeah, they can't.
They are locked into 39-43 at
if
best.
They win every if
they win out, they'll be 39-43.
And they really look. I mean, there are scenarios where they could get into the play-in. They'd have to win some games, and other teams would have to lose some games, and you could come up with multiple scenarios where that happens. But the likelihood at this point is they're not even going to make the play-in. They're going to finish this season likely as the 12th seed. What a disaster. And they say all that, by the way. And like, I watched the Knicks game and I'm like, they're not even playing that bad. They're almost playing at the peak of what they're capable of playing with this roster against the Knicks, and they still lost that game in particular.
They actually played really good defense against the Knicks last night for stretches. Maybe not for the entire game, but there was a stretch in there at one point where I think the Knicks went like 6 minutes without a field goal made. And of course, what happened, like, This was after games and games of giving up 130, 135, 140. You know, like they've been horrendous defensively. Finally, you get a game where you only give up 112, but you can only score 98 because you shoot 12% from deep as a team, including, I mean, look, it makes sense for Ryan Dunn to struggle from three. It makes sense that, you know, we know Oso Ighodaro can't shoot, things like that. But like Grayson Allen, who's only on the floor to shoot threes, couldn't hit a shot. Royce O'Neal wasn't making shots. Bradley Beal, I mean, I don't even know what I want to say about Bradley Beal. I know we're going to
have a long conversation about him. Yeah.
So I'll just leave it for that. I think Colin Gillespie missed all his shots yesterday against the Knicks too. So part of me was just like, well, at least I got to watch the young players play. At least I got to see the energy they left on the game. And like, if they shot 25% from deep as a team, maybe they win that game, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But it's still nothing to like praise them over.
No,
and
of course
you know,
not. Yeah.
it's not a reason to expect any remotely, forget the casual Suns fans, but like anyone who's not the most diehard of diehards is checked out, is not watching these games. Mm-hmm. And they have virtually no reason to watch them. Devin Booker is still really good. Maybe that's one reason to watch these remaining games, is that he's had an awesome week. And for a while, the Knicks absolutely could not stop him. They were not really doubling him in the first half. And eventually they made that adjustment, but it took them a while to get there, and not before he had torched them for 25, 30 points already.
Yeah. Torching future son, OG Anunoby. Over and over again. OG Anunoby, by the way, what a few weeks he's been having. He's just been out of his mind offensively. But yeah, could not guard Devin Booker on his own. They had to send two guys at him towards the end of that game. It didn't really matter. Booker ended that game with 40 points. Not a ton of assists, but like that's because they couldn't hit a single shot. You're not going to get a lot of assists when they shoot 12% from three, especially for the guy in Devin Booker who creates the most assists from three-point shooters of any player in the NBA this season, and that's a real stat for him. But yeah, it's just been like watching. It's actually a really weird experience to watch these teams as people who have watched all of Devin Booker's career, because it feels like early Devin Booker, where he was the only guy that could do anything and everyone else sucked, except that this team's like mostly old. You know, like Royce O'Neal, who wasn't very good. Royce O'Neal, by the way, has checked out defensively lately. Just not been good defensively. He can hit shots occasionally, and you know what it is with Royce. Like, he'll get hot, he'll hit 5 threes in a row, and there's games where he'll miss 7 in a row. But like defensively, he's not playing anywhere near what he's capable of. He completely got out of the way and allowed Karl Anthony Towns to dunk once in that game too, in a way that I was like, all right, well, he's done. Like, why am I even watching?
So you're making me look it up right now. This is an actually insane stat. The last time that Royce O'Neal recorded a steal, do you want to guess when it was?
I can't.
His last steal, a single steal.
When?
March 19th in a win against the Chicago Bulls. Since then, since that game, Royce O'Neal has played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games and a total of 139 minutes without a steal recorded.
Yeah.
That's fucking wild.
I'm glad the eye test matches up with the stats in some ways, but it's frustrating because like in some ways, like how do you blame him? You know, like this team tried to trade Kevin Durant in the trade deadline. You know, the moment that I describe as the season ending was when Kevin Durant blew up that trade at the trade deadline, essentially, which, by the way, he has the right to do. He's Kevin Durant. But like for the veterans who've been around for a long time, they're looking at this team going, well, now what? What are we supposed to do? Be confident that this team is going to be good after they did everything they could to trade their best player? No. Like Royce O'Neal, it's hard to blame him in some ways, but in other ways, you're getting paid $11 million. Like, you should be playing a little bit better. And
I wonder if part of him and Grayson are thinking like they don't want to play well at the end of the season because that means they're more likely to be moved. You know,
yeah,
maybe
they like the weather. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the motivations, and this is kind of my greater issue with this team right now. I don't know the motivations of any of these players anymore. I'm reasonably certain that Devin Booker, I can take him at his word when he says, you know, he values the image of who he is to Phoenix, and he wants to be who knows if he actually will be a Sun forever, but I think he has this special connection with the city. For the rest of these guys, Bradley Beal especially included. It's like, do you want to be here? Do you want to compete? Like, what are any of you trying to accomplish? Kevin Durant. I don't know what Kevin Durant wants either. Does he want to compete? Does he want to just chill in the retirement home of Phoenix for the next couple of years and, win 43 games? I really don't know. And I would throw Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal into that bucket too. Don't know what they want. I think they have some trade value. I don't know if they're looking to go like chase rings. They're at that stage of their careers, their respective careers, if that's important to them. They could also just as easily go to the Washington Wizards and score 15 points a game. So I really don't know what anyone is fighting for anymore. It feels like the only guys who I know are Ryan Dunn and Oso, who are rookies, who are hungry because of that youth, and also just because of who they've always been. Like if you go back and watch their college tape too, they don't take anything for granted. And Colin Gillespie, because he's poor, because he makes no money.
He's got more to play
he's
for.
He's fighting for a real NBA contract.
Exactly. He's got more to play for than anyone else on this team, and that's why he deserves minutes. And by the way, he was benched because he's starting, and they played well when he was starting. And admittedly, they haven't won a game in 6 games or whatever. So there's not a lot of defense for saying he needs to start, because even though the 4-game win streak, he was starting for all of those. He also was starting for the 6-game, or for 5 of the 6 of the losing streak here. Bradley Beal did come back. By the way, had the worst game he could possibly have in his first game back, Boston, where he was just awful, could not do anything right. Came back in this game against the Knicks and was awful to start the game. Had a brief stretch where he looked pretty good and then just went right back to doing nothing right again. Like, it's a weird thing where like there was a moment in there where you're like, okay, I could defend Bradley Beal a little bit this week. And he just can't be trusted with the ball. Like when the game is on the line, which at this point, there were moments in that Knicks game where it was close. It was within 3 points in the fourth quarter. And he can't be trusted with the ball in those minutes at all. And this is at a time where as soon as Devin Booker touches the ball, they're sending 2 guys at him, even if it's at half court. So you need somebody else to be able to be trusted with the ball in those scenarios. If you want to have any opportunity to win the game, he can't be trusted. He's been awful. Like I've mentioned it before, like my least favorite Suns player I think we've ever covered, and one of my least favorite Suns players we've ever watched.
So I'm sure you said that before, but just hearing it again, it's like, wow. Least favorite Suns player we've ever covered.
Yeah.
It's just the expectations factor.
The money matters. Yeah, it affects. Yeah. I hate that it does. Like, it affects how you, just like the impact that his salary has and his no trade clause on the team's ability to do anything. It matters. And like, factor that in, that with that salary comes expectations, and no one has ever like not lived up to the expectations to this extent. It's been the worst experience that I've had watching. And we're going to talk about like where I want to have a worst trades in the history of the Suns conversation. I know everyone's looking forward to that. But I want to have that conversation, and I want to talk about where he stacks up within that in the next segment of this podcast. But like, just watching him play in this game, it's like, I'm not sure what, like, we're even having conversations now at this point. We talked about waiving and stretching him on this podcast. Since then, we've clarified that in order for them to even do that, he would have to give up money. Mm-hmm. Not an exciting prospect to us. And then Gambo brought it up on the radio as something the Suns could do. Didn't seem like it was sourced, but it's hard to tell with Gambo sometimes. And then casually, Bill Simmons brings it up on his podcast just a few days ago. And like, the momentum, in my mind at the very least, is building
towards
That's Gambo's
source. That. Bill Simmons is behind it all. He's been the source all along.
Yeah.
Shout out. I haven't listened to the Zach Lowe show yet. I don't know if you have. I think the first episode dropped today.
Yeah, I'm not quite. It was a long one. It's very good. He's very good.
I'm just very excited to have him back. So
the
I can't
first
think
thing
about
he
Bill
did
Simmons.
on his episode was make fun of Matt Ishbia, by the way.
Yeah. He really thinks it's funny. So I did listen to his episode last week with him and
Bill. Yeah.
And he really thinks the Ishbia comment of like 26 teams would trade rosters with us or whatever Ishbia said. He thinks that's like the funniest thing in the world, which he needs to not ride that too hard, because it's dangerously close to like Greta talking about Robert Sarver territory, like, and Rachel Nichols making fun of that. You know what I mean? But like any chance that someone gets to point out in Matt Ishbia's face, if he's listening to any of this content at all, just how much this has all blown up in his face.
Yeah.
Any opportunity you have to do that on the national level, you have to take, just on the off chance that Matt Ishbia is listening, on the off chance that he feels some shame. And speaking of shame, we go back to this Bradley Beal conversation. And the crazy thing about it to me, as I watch him right now, it's like, look, I understand. I can't be mad, or I can't be exceptionally mad at the comments Brad has made to the media about, I've got my no trade clause, I'm smiling every day, Jesus is my
I can
savior,
be mad about that.
Whatever. You can be mad about that. That's fine. He bargained.
It hurt me to hear you say it just now.
Say what? That
just the quote. And look, I understand, like, it's a very human reaction for Bradley Beal to say that. Like, he's smiling because he has his no trade clause, but it's just like, have some self-awareness about how fans feel. Just some.
Right. Well, okay, and that's where I'm getting. Like, he bargained for this, asset in his contract, and he is allowed to execute that power that he has over the organization. Okay, fine, whatever. Self-awareness or not. But it's like, I don't know how plugged in he is to the media environment and to what people are saying, but like, if you consider yourself a competitive athlete at all, forget how many ever millions of dollars you're making, are you not just embarrassed at the notion that people are talking about waiving and stretching you? You were scoring 30 points per game a couple years ago. You led the NBA in scoring back-to-back years, or came close. I don't remember if he was literally leading or not. But like, you were among the league leaders in scoring in back-to-back years. You probably still think of yourself as the superstar, even though we all know he's not. But it's like, a wave and stretch, that's where we're at. Bradley Beal is like that, at the very least, should be a reason to play for pride and to save whatever reputation you still think you have, because that's just embarrassing. It's embarrassing for all parties. Obviously, it's embarrassing for the Suns that they made this horrendous trade, and may it follow Josh Bartelstein forever if we have to have a conversation about him as well in the summer. And Matt Ishbia too, of course, because he's at the top. But it's also following you, Bradley Beal. And that's a reason to actually play in these games with some competitive spirit and not just to smile on the sidelines.
Let's talk about the worst trades in Suns history here, because this is a good segue right into that. I have basically 10 trades I want to bring up to you. And I want to talk about where the Bradley Beal trade sits within this total morass of worst trades in Suns history. And look, it's a thing with Suns fans, right? We can all... I can say worst trade in Suns history, and there's a bunch of people listening right now that have specific trades in their mind that they can think of, and some are much, much worse than others in this conversation. And probably a lot of what trade you first think of is based on how old you are and how long you've been a fan when you think of specific trades. But I'm going to bring up all of them. And we don't have to rank all of them. That would take way too long. But we can talk about where the Bradley Beal trade sits within all of them. But I will say this. You've been a Suns fan since 2005-ish. When I say worst trade in Suns history, I assume you think of from that moment on. Is there a trade specifically that sticks out in your mind?
The first one that comes to mind is Marion for Shaq.
Yeah.
That's the first one from like my childhood. Yeah. Probably my first experience being like, this is horrible.
And so the context of that trade, 2008, the Suns have Mike D'Antoni as a coach. The general manager is Steve Kerr, and they're looking for size. They think that one of the problems with this team is a lack of size, and they trade their best defender and their third best player for an aging Shaq who came in here and ruined all the vibes and ruined all the fun and was never a good fit with Steve Nash. And look, the weird thing about Steve Nash is his prime of his career was kind of late in his career. But this was 2 seasons, essentially, where it was essentially the extended prime of Steve Nash that was wasted playing with Shaq. Their best chances to win a championship could have been during those seasons. And yeah, that's, I think, one of the first ones that I think of as well. Pretty brutal.
If I can give an honorable mention for that era of Suns basketball too, this I don't expect to appear in your list, but it's like just the general pick management. This is
I do have those. Yeah.
You do? Okay. It's such a me point to make, to be like, actually, the superstar trades weren't the worst.
You're going to hate them when I get into the details on
it. It was Kurt Thomas and 2 first-round picks for nothing. That was the worst trade in Suns history, or whatever that was.
Let's start here. 1995, the Suns traded Charles Barkley away from the team. They traded Charles Barkley for Chucky Brown, Sam Cassell, Robert Horry, and Mark Bryant. Now, I was not a Suns fan yet, and I could barely remember any of this. I was really young. But that's not great if you think about this, because a couple things on that. Chucky Brown didn't play much. I believe he was traded before the trade deadline of that same season. Sam Cassell famously did not like his time in Phoenix and was not here very long. Robert Horry threw a towel in the coach's face and was traded in disgrace. Famously, not a great time here in Phoenix. And the one player that actually lasted a long time and even ended up, I think, on the coaching staff at some point was Mark Bryant, who came off the bench for the Suns and played for quite a long time for the Phoenix Suns, and was the one player I think that has probably a good memory in Suns fans' minds. But that was an MVP just 2 years after his MVP. They traded for, I'm going to say it like this, a bunch of garbage. And I know Sam Cassell and Robert Horry ended up being pretty good.
Yeah.
But did not work out for the Suns. Well,
they did. I'm looking right now just to jog my memory, because, again, this was before my time. They turned Cassell with Michael Finley, who they drafted, who also ended up being really good. And they turned Cassell and Michael Finley into the main pieces of the package in a Jason Kidd trade. So if you look at it from that angle, they brought in Jason Kidd. Now some, whatever feelings you have about Jason Kidd years and years later, but he was a really good player, and, the Suns made the playoffs with him. And the other thing I would say is Houston didn't do shit with Charles Barkley. I mean, if anything, that was the 90s version, that Houston team with This was the, correct me if I'm wrong, this was the Hakeem, Drexler, Barkley team, right? That was a big three?
Yes.
That's what the Suns are doing right now. Mm-hmm. That's basically the 90s version of what the Suns are doing right now.
Except that there's not 8 picks attached to that. Yeah, the Suns didn't get those picks, which is like a new cost of star trades, like that amount of picks. Inflation, tariffs, if you will.
Actually, that 96-97 Rockets team, the first season with Barkley, won 57 games. And they did lose in the Western Conference Finals, but to the Utah Jazz, who obviously went on to lose to the Bulls. But KD, Beal, and Booker wished that they could have won 57 games together, right? It never even meshed. It never even came close to meshing to that point.
Let's go over the Robert Sarver mistake parade here. Okay. 2006, the Suns had the 21st overall pick. Obviously, that's coming off of a good 2005-2006 season for the Suns. They ended up with the 21st overall pick. I don't know if that's the one they owned or if they traded for, whatever it is. They picked Rajon Rondo with that pick, who you can probably argue would have been an excellent backup for Steve Nash during that time. They traded Rajon Rondo along with Brian Grant for a 2007 first-round pick, which they ended up, I believe, trading for cash, that 2007 pick. In fact, they may have been included with Kurt Thomas in the trade we're about to talk about in a minute. But Rajon Rondo, so this is a team, for those who don't know the context of this era, this is quite possibly the worst way to manage a team that was a contender. They're trading players who could be cheap salary that could earn their way into the rotation for nothing. And this was, I believe, one of the first times they did this. They had another one I want to talk about in a second. But Rajon Rondo eventually would have played a role on the Suns and could have extended the run that they had. And you could make a case, along with the other mistakes that we're going to talk about, could have resulted in a title for the Phoenix Suns, because Rajon Rondo would have made a pretty large difference, because not only was he an excellent offensive player early in his career, he was a really, really good defensive player.
A couple of things about this. It would have been like, and obviously the Suns, the 05 Suns or whatever, they didn't even win the championship. They were the best team, arguably the best team in the regular season, but they didn't win a championship. But this would have been like if 10 years later, the Warriors won that chip in 2015, their first one, before even like the 73 win season. And then they were like, okay, Draymond Green wants too much money, or Klay Thompson or someone wants too much money. That's Joe Johnson. Let's trade that player for some inferior pieces, and let's just trade all our picks. No Kevon Looney, no Jordan Poole, like anyone who could come in and be a role player and have the chance of extending this team, this franchise's window. Let's just screw all of that and pretend that none of it exists. And even as a kid, it always pissed me off the way people defended this. Is like, well, D'Antoni wasn't going to play rookies anyway.
That's so insane to me. Like, can you just imagine how that would get killed in the media today, and like the pod sphere and the blogosphere that we live in today? Like, the idea of that sort of defense for this kind of trade is insane. And by the way, let's add this one to it. In 2004, 2 years before this, the Suns had the 7th overall pick. 7th. And they picked Luol Deng with that pick, and then traded him for a future protected first-round pick and no players. Meaning they said, we have the 7th overall pick, and we're going to do nothing this season with that pick. That is just such an absurd trade in hindsight. To think about how much Luol Deng, first of all, would have helped this team to have another wing, as we know, a defender, and the way that they played, small, a big sort of thick wing like Luol Deng, for those who don't remember, an excellent defender who ended up becoming a pretty good offensive player too in his career, would have been an excellent
all-star.
Fit. Yeah,
I think he was a one-time all-star, but he was an all-star. He closed in on 20 points per game a couple times. There was a chance, if they had played this the right way, where in 2007 you have Rajon Rondo as Nash's protege and Luol Deng as Marion's protege, as like your 7th and 8th men. And instead, you have like the actual guys who played on that team was like fucking Marcus Banks and I say this respectfully, but James Jones. Yeah. That could have been the difference in that Spurs series.
Two all-stars.
That could have been, they wouldn't have been all-stars at that point in time, but they would have been better than Marcus Banks and James Jones,
But even having the flexibility of having all-stars in the future that you could have traded to extend that, or like the idea of taking this Luol Deng pick and trading it for, like say they took this pick and said, we're taking Luol Deng and we're going to trade him for a player who could play on this team now. Then you could say, okay, cool, they're trying to capitalize on this exact moment to win. But they traded him for nothing, a future protected pick, which they did use eventually on someone, but it did not impact that team in that season, which they ended up having one of their best seasons ever. Steve Nash won the MVP. Like, this was a season where they could have been amazing, and they did nothing with it. They didn't choose to develop. They didn't choose to trade it for a player. They choose to trade it for a future pick and just extend it so they could save money. It's just essentially to save money. And then the third and final mistake of this era was in 2007, by the way, the 2004 Luol Deng, 2006 Rajon Rondo, 2007 Kurt Thomas, and 2 first-round picks just to get rid of Kurt Thomas to the Seattle Supersonics, who, by the way, I read the original article.
Is that the original Nurkic trade?
I read the original article about this trade on ESPN.com, and the article says that the Supersonics were seeking Kurt Thomas to tutor Kevin Durant and Jeff Green at the time in 2007, who they just picked both of those players in the first round of the 2007 draft. One of those picks that was attached to Kurt Thomas, know what
you're gonna say, in 2008
became Serge Ibaka,
another great player
who would have fit really, really well on the Suns.
I mean, like I just said, like imagine Rondo backing up Nash, Deng backing up Marion, and eventually maybe these guys couldn't have been backups anymore, and you would have had to trade them or trade the guy in front of them or whatever. But then imagine Ibaka behind Amari.
Or playing with him. Playing with him.
It all would have fit so well. It's just so, the mismanagement of that era, it's just so fucking disgusting. And then, like, that's what pisses me off, too, about, you know, I feel like so much of who I am as a fan now, 15 years later, wanting to get behind Ishbia, wanting to compensate for the fact that for so many years we had an owner who didn't spend, who did the cheap thing, and now we finally don't have that. But there are these restrictive CBA rules in place, the first apron, the second apron, and of course just the fact that Ishbia has been dumb with his money. It's great to be able to spend, but he's done some objectively dumb things too. Why couldn't we have had an owner like this in 2007?
We'd have a championship, I think. Yeah. Steve Nash's entire legacy would be viewed differently. And, you know, it's just fascinating to think about because we actually don't talk a lot about Steve Nash on this podcast. We focus mostly on this era, but like the extent to which the Steve Nash era Suns were better than the offenses at the time was similar to like the way Jokic has an impact on the Nuggets. It's just kind of insane the way that it didn't quite work out for him because of the decisions I think made by Robert Sarver at the time. I think that is like the main thing you can point at as to why this didn't end up working out. Because even if you say Rajon Rondo, Luol Deng, Serge Ibaka aren't going to play on this team, well, they would have had value in trades beyond just cash if they had done it right. Like they could have traded those players for better players that fit better on the team. You know, and they didn't. They didn't ever have the opportunity.
Remember when they almost made was it 07 before the Shaq trade? Weren't they in conversations on a KG trade before he went to Boston?
Yes.
Like you wonder if a piece like that, you wonder if Marion and a piece like that, would have sent it over
Marion and Rondo.
And then you have Amari and KG teaming up instead
with
of KG
Steve
going
Nash.
to Boston.
Oh, the guaranteed championship.
And instead, you end up with, like, again, respectfully, Shaq is one of the greats to have ever played this game, but you can even see it in his analysis now, the way he talks about a guy like Nikola Jokic. He has always been an insecure loser, honestly. I mean, I guess that's not a respectful way to say it, but, like, you know, versus a guy like KG, who is, like, don't get me wrong, very intense, but deeply cares about the sport of basketball and kind of getting the most out of his teammates. And then Shaq
is a great actor, unlike Shaq.
Shaq he came into the Suns locker room. He came into the Suns locker room.
It's no Uncut Gems.
And he just tears people down and, like, sexually assaults them in the locker room and, you know, like, just does shitty things.
You can find those stories. I'm not going to talk about it now.
You can, man.
The vibes were way off with Shaq. Like, it ruined the vibes of the team for years. And, like, many of us were on the right side of history.
Steals ideas for mediocre TV shows.
It's kind of
insane.
Who
does that?
Yeah, it is insane. And all because he resents Steve Nash for winning the MVP over him. Okay. A couple of trades that I want to mention before we get to the Brad Beal trade. This is just a funny one because I was looking up, shout out to, I think, Valley of the Suns. I found an article that had some really bad trades listed. And this one was listed on there, and I thought it was funny because the article was written in 2017. And it was 2015 Isaiah Thomas to Boston with a first-round pick for essentially for Brandon Knight. And that one's really funny because...
Was this the Marcus Thornton trade?
It was the same off-season or same trade deadline that Goran Dragic was traded. And the Goran Dragic trade returned 2 first-round picks, which was a good trade, I believe. But I don't remember who else was included in this one, but I do know the Suns included a first-round pick with Isaiah Thomas to Boston. And then Isaiah Thomas went on to, like, get MVP votes in Boston. It was actually really good in a few seasons with Boston. Famously played through an injury and probably shouldn't have with that team because they traded him immediately afterwards for Kyrie Irving, and he was just really great on that team. I thought that was a funny one as like an honorable mention. Brandon Knight was really bad. Really bad.
He was okay, but frustrating for one season. I didn't even like him much in that one season, but at least he was kind of like scoring. And then in the second season, I guess he was here for like 10 games post-trade in that first year, 14-15. Then he had all of 15-16. The team sucked, but at least he scored some points. By 16-17, his last season with the Suns, it was like, we can't even play this guy.
That's when it was similar, I think, to Bradley Beal now, where it was so clear that the team was better when he didn't play, Brandon Knight, that they just started not playing him. Like he just... By the way...
You have to pay $50 million.
Fans, picture Sam and I on the Suns Reddit with like 1,000 people subscribed to the Suns Reddit, and Sam being in his teens and me being in my 20s, and we're on there talking about Brandon Knight daily. Like literally daily on that Suns Reddit. Like that's literally how Sam and I met. But yeah.
Picture me making what was basically really archaic versions of the fan cam, the TikTok fan cam before they existed, because I was putting together some YouTube mixes of like Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight highlights in my teens. That's how I was spending my teenage years. I got no bitches, but Brandon Knight. Not, if you had to,
wearing a Brandon Knight jersey at the club,
yeah,
practicing your jump shot like KD.
Would you rather start a team around 24-year-old Brandon Knight or 30-year-old Bradley Beal?
Are the contracts the same as what they had during that time?
Let's say they're inflated for today's money. So Brandon Knight is
like
making
25 or something,
$30 million today.
Yeah, I'd rather. Honestly, do we own our own picks? If we own our own picks, I'm going to say Bradley Beal because it's guaranteed to tank for a while and get some picks.
Let's say we do own our own picks, but any top 10 prospect who is an unconfident, skinny Croatian, you're obligated to take in the top 10.
Yeah, Brad. I think I'd say Brad. They're both bad. But Brandon Knight actually would play. And that means you might win too many games to get a good pick. 1994. When I say that, do you have any idea what I'm about to say?
1994.
Yeah.
What happened in 1994?
Dan Marley.
No, I actually don't know.
Was traded for Hot Rod Williams, which was now I wasn't a Suns fan at this time, but Suns fans seem to hate this based on my research. But also, even beyond that, Charles Barkley says it was one of the reasons he wanted to leave the Suns because one of the guys he wanted to play with was Dan Marley. So he was not happy about that. Kind of a fascinating one. Two more.
Well, that was one of the big drop-offs in Suns history. They went from 59 wins to 41.
Yeah. And I have to mention these two. I don't necessarily agree with either of them, but I know Suns fans are listening and they want me to mention these, and that's DeAndre Ayton for Yusuf Nurkic and Grayson Allen.
Yep. I think it deserves inclusion in the list.
And
because we can be honest about, like everyone is frothing at the mouth about Toumani Camara in that trade too.
Okay, you ready for this one? Cameron Johnson trade. And Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder, along with 100 picks for Kevin Durant.
We're going to look back at the trade for sure. And I mean, it all depends on the return that KD commands.
The thing is that KD wasn't terrible. Like, I think that the reason the Bradley Beal trade is so bad is because Bradley Beal's been terrible. Like,
can I say something?
And even Grayson Allen's been pretty good. Yeah.
Can I say something that's really going to get me in trouble? We can speak truthfully. KD's not playing right now. I feel like all the KD stands, they don't listen to the podcast anyway, but like on Twitter, I feel like they haven't been watching the past few games because KD's not playing.
Well, if they are watching, it's only to say bad things about the players that are playing, yeah.
I'm not going to pretend that I felt this way when the trade happened. I celebrated the KD trade like crazy when it happened. But I do think when we look back on it in hindsight, there was a notion to the idea that, like,
they gave up too
by
much.
all means.
Yeah.
Huh?
They gave up too much.
Well, yeah, they gave up too much. Obviously, definitely that. Like, James Jones was trying to hold out. I think if you make that trade with Ayton, then it's
a home
easily...
run.
It's a home run.
And that's why the Ayton trade is impossible to... Like, people point at that as a terrible trade. They always leave out the fact that nobody wanted DeAndre Ayton. I was told at the time, and I told you this, and I have proof of that if I need it. The Suns offered DeAndre Ayton to every team in the league. Every single team, and the only team that was willing to take him is the one they traded him to. He had no trade value.
Yeah, well, and also Indiana maybe the year before when they thought...
That was beyond... Like, there was so much bad things that happened after that his value was in the toilet. Just completely in the toilet. So
okay, so this is the part that I think you're going to call me crazy and say that you don't even agree with this. So I'm giving you a get out of jail free card because I'm allowing other people to label me as the KD hater and not you.
Oh yeah, for the first time they'll label you as that. Sure.
I do think there's an element of like Brad, with how bad he has been, was certainly by far a worse trade, and like almost single-handedly sank the Suns' floor. He has made them such a bad team. I think this is a part that everyone agrees with, right? Brad has been awful. No one defends him. But I also think there's like, when you made that KD trade, did you cap your ceiling lower?
Well, yeah,
than what you thought you were doing?
No, you're right. It's the combination of the KD trade plus the second apron being introduced at the exact same time. Like the Suns were just in a position where it was really difficult to build a good team, especially with the fact that nobody wanted DeAndre Ayton.
The combination of the salary, it's the combination of the salary and just the way like KD plays.
Well, no, I think to me it's like giving up all the picks so you had nothing to improve anywhere else. And by the way, like the Suns were like, okay, we'll give you everything. And then the Nets said, okay, we'll take everything. And also we want more. And the Suns said yes, because if you read those articles again, James Jones was clearly holding out. Matt Ishbia got to the team. This is the reporting at the time. And he said, okay, send them everything they want. And right before the trade was supposed to go through, they said, oh, now we want Jay Crowder too. And you know what Matt Ishbia said? Yes, please, take him. We'll give you anything you want because I am desperate to make this trade as soon as I buy the team. Like, they just completely bent the Suns over and took everything from them because of Matt Ishbia and his desperation to make this trade the moment it happened. And that, to me, was the mistake. If anything, they should have, like, what did they do? They got one playoff win, you know, after, and then they lost to the Nuggets, who ended up winning the championship. If anything, they could have held out one series win. If anything, they could have held out to the offseason and see if KD had any more control over it. Because why was it necessary to do it at that time if they wanted every single thing they could get from you? In hindsight, they should have held out even longer, or just held out to the last second to see if they make them bend until they break. That's how negotiation works. If I'm ever in a negotiation, I hope it's against Matt Ishbia. That's what I'll say.
Well, you know, we could take the half-glass full approach and say that maybe he's learned from his mistakes. I think we're going to test that in a number of ways this summer.
I don't know, man. Now that he traded the 2031 first-round pick for 3 terrible picks and immediately got rid of one to get rid of Nurkic.
So I don't like the Nurkic aspect of that trade, but I will continue to be a defender of 2031 for 3 mid picks, and you can call them or terrible picks. That's fine. Yeah. I don't think they're going to be that bad in 2031. I am holding out on my belief that was not a bad trade. If you want to pay in the Nurkic trade, fine. But
the book will be written on that trade.
We'll see.
Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a world where it's smart, but there's also a world where it was really dumb, and that's still out there. 2023, Bradley Beal, Jordan Goodwin, and Isaiah Todd. I don't know if you remembered that he was part of this trade.
Not at all.
Let me read this all. Give me a moment. Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, Bilal Coulibaly. Apparently, that was part of the trade.
How?
I don't know.
How was that in there?
This is on the ESPN article. Number 7 pick via Pacers. I don't know how it worked because the Pacers were part of this. Oh, I see. They swapped the 7th and 8th pick because it was a 3-team trade.
Okay.
2024 first round pick swap, 2024 second round pick swap, 2025 second round pick, 2026 first round pick swap, 2026 second round pick, 2027 second round pick, 2028 first round pick swap, 2028 second round pick, 2030 first round pick swap, and 2030 second round pick. And then the Pacers got the 8th overall pick. And then a future second round pick via the Wizards and a future second round pick via the Suns. It's pretty bad, man.
It's horrible, but
did they need to give all of that up? That's my question, right? Bradley Beal fully controlling his destiny. Did they need to swap every first round pick? Did they need to include every second round pick? I don't think they did. I really don't think they did.
I don't know what the negotiation process looked like at that point in time. Obviously, we were talking about how hamstrung the Suns were going to be in free agency if they elected to, try and like waive Chris Paul or whatever it was, and then like go in with no cap space, but like just an MLE that they could use on Gabe Vincent or whatever. Like, we were down bad for other options outside of trading for Bradley Beal, but it's the no trade clause that killed them, and it's the no trade clause that by far makes this, if we can just say it.
No, it is.
If we can award this the worst trade in Phoenix Suns franchise history. Without that no trade clause, we probably maybe we would have flipped Brad by now.
I think that
and you
Bradley
would have managed
Beal's,
to salvage this.
His no trade clause actually impacts his play. I really think that it does. That sort of security blanket that he has over him, it means he can't be shipped off wherever he wants if he plays badly. He can just play badly and stay where he wants. It's not good. And overall, I think you could call this, if you want to make the case, and we don't have to do it now, but if you want to make the case that this is the worst trade in Suns history, I think you could make that case. Like, I think the amalgamation of 2004 to 2008 and all the decisions that led to the dismantling of the Steve Nash Suns under Robert Sarver's tutelage was worse if you look at it all together. Like, maybe the Luol Deng one was the worst one. I don't know. Like, maybe the Kurt Thomas one. $8 million cash the Suns got back in the Kurt Thomas trade. They just wanted money. That's pretty bad. All of that together is pretty bad. But this one, I think, the way that the Suns have zero flexibility after, the fact that they weren't even able to include any sort of these pick swaps or second-round picks in other trades to try to improve at the center position, for example, is pretty bad. And, it's just all of it together will get even worse if they even consider waiving and stretching Bradley Beal and including him. Like, the idea that Matt Ishbia, out of one side of his mouth, is saying, we want to build a team around Devin Booker. And then if he actually is considering waiving and stretching Bradley Beal and including, let's say $15 million, like, this is a good projection, $15 million on the cap over the next 5 years. During Devin Booker's prime, handicapping the team like that is insane. It's not going to be good. It's going to lead to Devin Booker being gone. And that would make this by far, to me, the worst trade in Suns history. It's up there right now too, though.
You could make the case just as easily that having Brad on the payroll for $54 million over the next 2 years in Booker's prime.
It could
also lead to Devin Booker being gone.
Yeah, but there is also a world where in that last year, the Suns have more assets. They could potentially trade him for something of value. That could happen. And I think the idea of the immediacy and the idea of needing something immediately, which is, I think, what sort of defines Matt Ishbia right now, the lack of patience, I think is just how you just continue digging your own grave.
He's the most iPad kid of all NBA owners.
It's true. You've heard him talk.
One could say. He might be the youngest NBA owner. Is there a younger owner than Ishbia?
I think he is the youngest. No. The Utah Jazz owner is younger, I think.
Oh, yeah. He might even be in his 30s. But he's definitely among there.
Yeah.
He's not quite an iPad kid. But he's not exactly beating the allegations either.
Do you want to hear a trade that I made up?
Absolutely.
If
we
the
have to continue.
Either of these trades, they won't be on the list.
We have to cover trade of the week, just as we've done for the past 5 or 6 weeks. Remember last week? We got some good responses. I felt good about this because a decent amount of people were pretty happy with my Domantas Sabonis for KD 3-team trade proposal. Now, I was thinking about that again in hindsight because I included the Knicks in that trade. It was KD went to the Knicks and OG went to the Kings. But as you pointed out, I was watching OG last night and he was cooking. It really is. He's playing very well post All-Star break, which makes me wonder. KD is still so clearly an upgrade over OG, but it just makes me wonder how the Knicks are evaluating their roster. I wonder if they'd be more willing to give up Mikal Bridges than OG.
The playoffs
just something
matter,
I
right?
thought about.
The playoffs
matter.
Because OG is playing the best he's ever played. And how long is that going to... I don't know. How long would that even last?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so I am going off of what you did last week. It's something you and I talked about beforehand. I think if you're trying to look realistically at what Matt Ishbia's goal is, and we can't listen to anyone else but him. We can't. So if you're trying to look at what his goal is, it's not to get assets. It's not to get things for future trades. It's to try to be good next year. And so you traded for an all-star in Sabonis last week. And I wanted to put my home run trade, if you will, out there this week to see what we could potentially do to try to make the Suns good next year, and that includes a KD trade. I don't think there's... Look, we've had Shams Charania now reporting on Kevin Durant being traded this summer. I think we're at the point where he's getting traded. So I wanted to target, similar to you, an all-star from a team that is performing below expectations regularly, that maybe needs to change their trajectory a little bit. You targeted Sabonis in that way. And I am targeting, no surprise to people who are in the Discord, Trae Young from the Atlanta Hawks, who is in some level of trade rumors all the time. And the trade rumors for Trae Young are not so-and-so is trying to trade for Trae Young. It's the Hawks might consider trading Trae Young. It's very similar, actually, to the Sabonis thing. And so I am trying to figure out the best ways to get Trae Young to the Suns. And I don't think it's trading Kevin Durant to the Hawks, because I don't think that's somewhere he wants to play. So I have to figure out different ways to get there. By the way, Trae Young is a CAA client. I just think it's important to look this stuff up. I don't know if you did. Good for call. Sabonis.
No, I didn't at all. I usually don't think of that stuff, but I think it's worthy of a mention.
Devin Booker is CAA, for those who just want to know that. And I think... Okay, let me just explain the Trae Young thing before I get to the trade. There are people who are listening to this and going, wow, our defense would be terrible, it's not worth it, and they want to end the conversation there. And to you, I say, yes, the defense will probably not be good. But I think there are only a few players in the NBA that are true offensive engines for their team, and I think Devin Booker needs one of those engines in order to be successful at the highest level in the future Devin Booker teams on the Suns. And here's why. Devin Booker, if he remains the best playmaker on the team, then he has to be the playmaker on that team. And if Devin Booker is the playmaker on that team, that means he is focusing on being a point guard, and I don't think that is the best use of Devin Booker. I think the best use of Devin Booker is for him to be a scorer who's also a great playmaker, to have somebody like Chris Paul who can make that first pass, who can dribble the ball down, who can draw two guys to himself but on his own, and actually make plays for Devin Booker to give him easy shots, and also Devin Booker on his own can create those difficult shots. If you find an offensive engine to put next to Devin Booker, you have the recipe to put together a good team. Now, will they be good right away? No. But having a team with Trae Young and Devin Booker and understanding what to put around them is actually not that hard. Everyone else just needs to be athletes who play defense. That's really all it takes. Like, you can build a pretty good team around that. They'll play fast. Trae Young will shoot threes. Devin Booker will have space. I heard on the Zach Lowe show today that Trae Young this season set more on-ball screens this season than the entire rest of his career combined, meaning he's willing to find ways to be effective off the ball as well, which is going to be important if you're playing next to a real star like Devin Booker. I love Trae Young. I think he's cocky. I think he's fun. And I think he shoots game-breaking threes, not at the percentage of someone like Steph Curry, but at a high enough percentage to force the defense out to guard him in a way that would make the Suns really difficult to guard offensively. Now,
yeah. Also,
go ahead.
If I can just chime in with the one thing and say, Trae has played with some talented players over the past few years. Don't get me wrong. Never anyone remotely on the level of Devin Booker, and I think there has always been a bit of a reliance on his part of maybe he would be taking those dumb shots anyway because that's who he is. But also, the Hawks have kind of molded their offense around him needing to take shots like that, and I wonder if a different team with another true star sharing playmaking duties with him a little bit, who's not like DeJounte Murray. Like Devin Booker is much, much better than DeJounte Murray was. If another player would be able to moderate his decision-making a little bit and make him better as a player for it.
He's leading the league in assists this year, Trae Young as well. And I do think, like, from a weird basketball gods perspective, the Suns need a star point guard. Their most successful seasons have all come when they've had a star point guard. Bring a star point guard to the Suns. For some reason, that works. It's cosmic. I don't know how to explain it. Just give us Trae. So here we go. There's two options I want to throw at you. I came up with two trades. One of them is sending Kevin Durant to the Spurs because the Spurs own Atlanta's picks. And I think there's a world where you get those picks back to Atlanta. They allow their team to be fully led by Jalen Johnson and Dyson Daniels and just let them do whatever they want for a few seasons. Try to get high picks with those two picks that you could potentially get from the San Antonio Spurs. And you build a team around... Too. Yeah, and Risa Shea. And you build a team around essentially those five players. And here it is. So KD to the Spurs, Trae Young to the Suns, and the Spurs send the expiring Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan to the Atlanta Hawks, plus the 2026-2027 Atlanta Hawks picks to the Atlanta Hawks. And they also own, by the way, the 2025 pick, which you can't trade along with this trade. At least Spotrac didn't let me, but you can pick that player and send that player to them as well if that's something that they want or would be willing to do. But I think the more likely version of this trade is you get the 26 and 27 picks from the Atlanta Hawks back to Atlanta for KD, giving them the option to fully tank for 2 years and build around, I think, a pretty interesting core in Risa Shea, Jalen Johnson, and Dyson Daniels, plus whoever those two picks are for the next 2 years. And then also, let's just say if we have to, because they're like, well, that's all we get, 2 picks. I don't know, include the Cleveland pick this year that the Suns own. That's going to be the last pick in the draft, probably, or the second to last pick, and maybe a second round pick or something. So they get 3 picks. They can tank. Trae comes to the Suns. What do you think? Do you think this even is remotely possible?
Yeah. I mean, because if you mean from Atlanta's point of view, yeah,
all of them.
They're not making the playoffs. I mean, Trae is what I love about. I tried to trade for someone substantially younger than KD last week in Sabonis, but Sabonis is almost 30 himself. He might be 29. I can't remember exactly. Trae is 26. Like, there's a long runway on that timeline if you get a guy like that to be your offensive engine. And of course, there are issues, but he's just a much, much, much younger player. So I think obviously it makes sense for the Suns to be interested in Trae. And as for the Hawks, he's been there for 7 years, and they haven't made a playoff series in 3 years. And I don't think they've played more than, hold on, I can pull it up right here. I don't think they've played more than like 4 or 5 playoff series total with Trae in 7 years. So that partnership is just coming to a natural conclusion.
One thing I'll say is if Castle could be included, I think the Hawks would probably do it. Without that, I think the tough part is they're only getting one player with high level upside in Sohan, who is probably the worst prospect on the Spurs. Spurs don't have a lot on their roster next year, so you just kind of have to find a trade that works. Barnes being expiring is helpful. Keldon Johnson has multiple years left on his deal. Not the most exciting player, but is sort of a veteran. He played in the Olympics. Like, he has some level of veteran presence that could help a young team there in Atlanta.
Did you not include Vassell in that trade?
I didn't.
So I do think San Antonio maybe isn't giving up enough, only because, like, if you're San Antonio and the expectation next year is that you've got Wemby, you've got Fox, you're keeping Castle and Vassell, and you still want KD, I think you're asking for too much if you're a Spurs fan. I think you got to give up Castle or Vassell in this trade somewhere.
I just don't think they would do that for KD. That's the thing, is like, maybe you say, okay, you can keep one of the Atlanta picks, but you send Castle to Atlanta. I still don't think they do that. I think Castle has too high potential, and they're not willing to do that. There's just no reason for them to rush. The one player I think that would want them to rush is Fox. And the fact that they made that Fox trade maybe is some indication that they want to speed up this timeline. I mean, it's definitely some indication they want to speed up this timeline a little bit. But it's not a guarantee. I think giving up Castle is a lot for them. They didn't want to do it for Fox. I'm not sure they'd want to do it for KD. Because KD is you get 2 years of KD. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. This is also, let's just remember, the weakest. I really like Stephon Castle, and that's why in the past we've traded KD for Stephon Castle, and I would do that. But this is also the weakest because he's probably going to be Rookie of the Year. This is the weakest Rookie of the Year class in a long time.
That's true.
He might be Brandon Jennings. I mean, like, he really might be. He might be really, really, really good.
He would definitely get more opportunities. By the way, how fun would that Hawks team be after this with Castle, Daniels, Risache, Jalen Johnson? Like, it's kind of fun.
Kongwu, if he's still there. Kongwu's still
young.
Yeah,
just that's their starting lineup right there. Like, just a bunch of young guys. Plus, they have the ability of tanking for 2 years. But yeah, you're right. He might not be great. But like right now, he's viewed as a pretty high level asset. And it's tough to give that up this early. Or maybe they know more. And they're saying, yeah, let's capitalize on it now. Let's get KD. Let's try and win a championship next year. Which maybe they can. Like, that team would be pretty good with all the players left. Because it would be, the starting lineup would be Fox, like you said, Vassell, KD, Wemby, and then whoever else they want to start as that final player, which could be really interesting. Say they don't want to do it. Spurs just say no. I came up with a really convoluted 4-team trade.
Oh, I love this. This is what we need.
So, there were 5 teams that Shams Charania has said could be interested in Kevin Durant. There's one team that we have not featured on this podcast. That is the Miami Heat. So I came up with the trade where KD goes to the Miami Heat. Trae Young ends up on the Phoenix Suns. That means there's 3 teams already included: the Suns, the Heat, the Hawks. I had to find a home for Tyler Hero, so I opened up Old Reliable. I think you can guess who I traded Tyler Hero to here.
The Orlando Magic.
The Orlando Magic.
The division rivals.
Yep.
Orlando Magic and Miami.
Pretty good fit though, right?
No, it is. I just think it's so funny how we're always like, you know, this player needs offense, this team needs offense, and we don't want this player going to Phoenix. Orlando. That truly is all reliable. And Tyler Hero is really good, but Tyler Hero would just not fit next to Devin Booker. It just wouldn't work.
He wouldn't fit next to Devin Booker. There's no reason for the Suns to do that. So I do think that, like, maybe the Hawks are like, we still want to be good, and you could just send Tyler Hero to the Hawks in some sort of dumb trade where the Hawks just end up being a middling team forever. But I do think Tyler Hero is actually a pretty great fit, and I can't believe I haven't thought of this in the past, and I'm sure it's been discussed on other podcasts. He's a pretty good fit on the Orlando Magic in that he's had a really excellent offensive season, and he shoots a ton of threes. Just a lot of threes now, and that could be helpful for them. I also think that Orlando might actually be willing to give up a pick for Tyler Hero if they're able to get him on their team, say for Jonathan Isaac and Anthony Black, essentially, and a pick. They could get Tyler Hero. That's pretty good. Like, I actually think that would be a pretty good team after he joins that, and they can give up a first-round pick. On the other side of that, I know the Heat are willing to give up picks, and they're actually going to have quite a bit of picks to give up in a potential trade like this. So the final version of this trade that I came up with, and I included Tristan da Silva because I thought Tristan da Silva.
That's also really funny.
It's just something we do.
He's just become all reliable. Find a way to include Tristan da Silva in every trade.
Kevin Durant goes to the Miami Heat. Tyler Hero goes to the Orlando Magic. Trae Young and Tristan da Silva come to the Phoenix Suns. And we tried to get at least one first-round pick out of this, if we can, in order, because I think say the Heat are willing to give up 2 or 3, and then you have one from the Orlando Magic going around here too. That could be up to 4 picks involved in this trade. So, like, the Suns should try to get one of those. And then going to the Atlanta Hawks, not an exciting package for them. Terry Rozier, Jonathan Isaac, Anthony Black, Jet Howard, and 3 first-round picks from Miami. Let's say 25, the current pick that they're about to pick, 27 and 29. I think they have all 3 of those. And I think maybe you could even find a way to get the 27 pick from Orlando to the Hawks. They also have a Nuggets pick that's lightly protected that could go to the Suns, is what I was thinking. So the Suns get a first-round pick out of this. Maybe the Magic are willing to give out 2 picks because one of them is relatively protected, and then that's in 2027. This is what I came up with. It's convoluted. It's complicated. The Hawks are not very good in this trade, but they could get up to 4 picks here, potentially, for Trae Young. And Terry Rozier is expiring. Jonathan Isaac has years left. Anthony Black is like a interesting young player who could, I think, create an interesting backcourt with Dyson Daniels.
Black is, and this is why I was just talking about Stephon Castle. Look, if I'm Atlanta, I'm probably not the most excited about that package, which is basically just picks and Anthony Black and then like salary filler.
Mm-hmm.
But also, Anthony Black is like 6 months older than Stephon Castle,
yeah,
who we were just talking about.
Anthony Black may have won Rookie of the Year this year.
Yeah, if Anthony Black,
yeah.
Exactly. If Anthony Black was a rookie this year, he might have been Rookie of the Year. That's the perfect way of putting it. So that's why if I'm San Antonio, I don't want to overrate Castle, but also if I'm Atlanta in this trade, I don't want to underrate Anthony Black. He is a good prospect.
I think there are other versions of this trade, by the way, where Tyler Hero goes somewhere else. Like, because I think for the Suns, if you're looking at KD going to Miami, and I think you should take that one seriously if you're the Suns, because first of all, KD wants to be there. That's helpful. But second of all, they have picks. So picks and Tyler Hero is valuable. Tyler Hero makes like less than $30 million next year, but it's close. There are versions of this trade where Tyler Hero goes somewhere else that I think you could find interesting stuff for the Suns. So if you want to come up with 4-team trades, the way that I just did for Trae Young or whoever else you want to come up with, try to do that. I think that was kind of a fun experiment.
So you're telling me I'm on the clock again next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll be doing, I guess, a little bit of a recap of basically the Suns' regular season ending. I mean, there could be all sorts of exciting things for us to talk about next week, but we will try and get to a trade as well, and I will make a pledge right now. First of all, good job. I like these trades. I like the 4-team trade in particular.
Yeah, it's fun. Trae and Tristan da Silva. Tristan da Silva, I thought, wouldn't really be wanted by the Hawks because he was like for salary purposes because he's just a little older. And maybe they would want him, and that's fine. If we get Trae, that's fine. Whatever.
Trae, if you lock yourself into Trae and Book, you have Dunn and Oso, and you just say, for the next few years, we're just going to draft the most athletic guy every year. We're just going to draft 5 Ryan Dunns. I think you might be able to cook.
Yeah.
I really think you might be able to. It would at the very least be very fun to watch, and would hopefully get you out of the hell that they're currently in.
Trae Young,
but here's my pledge:
and Devin Booker marching up and down the court, talking shit to fans, talking shit to the other team. I'll take it. Give me 49 wins in that case.
Well, exactly. That's sort of what I was thinking with Sabonis last year too. It's like, ideally, you make a trade that turns you into a contender. But they have dug themselves so deep into the hole at this point that I'm not even sure I see.
Yeah.
I don't see a path to get back to contention in 1 year. It's going to take a little while. So next year, if we're just focused on getting some sort of star back that brings them back to respectable basketball, 45 to 50 wins again, like that sounds wonderful to me, because this truly, the lack of dogs on our current roster and just the lack of shame, frankly, that I've had to watch from these players all year, has been disgusting and has just made for one of the worst products I've ever seen out of my favorite basketball team. If not the worst product I've ever seen. My pledge for next week: we've done 2-team trades. We've done 3-team trades.
Uh-oh.
We've done a 4-team trade this week.
That's true.
Next week, I'm making it 5. I'm going to do, I don't know who is going in and I don't know who is going out, but I pledge to you I will make a 5-team trade next week on the podcast.
All right.
How about that?
All right, I'll take it.
Does Spotrac even have that capability?
I don't know.
Because I need the trade machine. If I can't have the trade machine, then I'm not going to be able to do this.
It's going to be incredibly hard without that. Yeah, I bet you can. I bet, because it's possible. There's been 5-team trades before, right? There had to have been.
I'm trying it right now. Just clicking on 5 random teams, saying next year, start trade. Let's go. It is possible. 5-team trade coming up next week.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening this week. If you like that trade, let us know. If you didn't like us, just ignore it. I don't want to hear it. But we appreciate you all for listening. If you'd like to join us on our Patreon, patreon.com/thetimeline. We're going to give out an award in a few episodes for the entire season. And one of the most pathetic awards I think we've ever seen, which will be the Dan Marley Hustle Player of the Year of the Week of the Year award.
Coming up, because the winner this week might just be you.
That's right. It could be the fans. It should be the fans at some point. The whole year it might be the fans. Also, check out alchemyroaster.com. Use the promo code Timeline. Order some coffee. You heard the ad at the beginning of the episode. We're partnering with them now. It's really good. But yeah, we appreciate you all. We'll be back with a Patreon episode midweek.